They all laughed at me, not loudly, but that quiet, smug kind of laugh that echoes more than a shout. You know the one. I was just the janitor. Cleaning up after their billion-dollar meetings, they never looked me in the eye. I wasn't supposed to be seen. But that morning, when the translator didn't show up, their million-dollar deal was on the verge of collapse, and the only person who could save it, my daughter. It was freezing that day, early January in Manhattan, the kind of cold that sinks into your bones and stays there. I showed up early like I always did, 5:45 a.m., elevator to the 47th floor of North Sky International, a tech company so rich they had golden handles on the boardroom doors. I was invisible, just a guy with a mop and worn-out boots. They called me sir only when HR walked by, but this morning felt off. The executives were panicked, coffee cups trembling in their hands, phones lighting up. Something was wrong. From the hallway, I overheard one of them snap, "The Japanese delegation is already en route. The translator's flight is grounded. We can't cancel. This is a $42 million agreement. They flew 14 hours for this." Panic, real panic. Now here's where it gets interesting. That day, my daughter Alana was with me. She had an interview downtown and asked if she could ride in with me to the city. She waited by the service elevator with her thrifted coat and a tattered paperback in her hand. She didn't fit in this skyscraper world. Not yet. Alana, she's not just my daughter, she's a genius, speaks 6 languages, majored in linguistics, graduated with honors, but life isn't fair. She applied to 78 jobs, got rejected by 74. The other 4 never replied. So here we were, and then it hit me. Double quotes, Alana, You can speak Japanese, right? She looked up calm as ever. Fluently. Why? My heart pounded. I walked into the boardroom slowly. 12 men in suits looked up like I was dirt on the carpet. Excuse me, I know this sounds crazy, but my daughter speaks Japanese perfectly. She can help. They laughed. Actually laughed. Your daughter, the janitor's kid. One guy in a navy suit said, "We need a professional translator." Not Duolingo, but they were out of options. "She has a degree from Columbia," I said. "She studied in Kyoto for a year." Silence. Then. Fine. Alana stepped into the boardroom like it was hers, confident. Not a flicker of fear. The Japanese executives arrived moments later, bowed politely. The Americans fumbled through handshakes. Then Alana spoke. Her tone shifted. Her dialect matched theirs. She even used regional Osaka expressions. Their eyebrows lifted. She translated perfectly, but not just words, emotions, nuance, tone. He didn't say, "We disagree." He said, "We see it differently for now." She bridged 2 worlds with every sentence for 94 minutes. She was the center of that room, and then it happened. One of the Japanese execs asked a question not to the Americans, but to her. He said, "Do you believe this partnership is honorable?" Alana paused, then replied, in perfect Japanese, "It will be if both sides stop pretending to listen and actually hear each other." You could hear a pin drop. The CEO leaned forward, eyes locked, and the Japanese team, they smiled. For the first time, deal closed. Handshakes exchanged. Papers signed. Alana stepped out quietly. I was standing by the janitor's closet, pretending to fix a mop. The CEO walked over to me. For the first time, he actually looked me in the eye. "She's brilliant. She's been brilliant her whole life," I replied. No one ever noticed. That evening, they offered her a position, Global Liaison Officer, 6-figure salary, full relocation, health benefits. She turned to me that night and said, "You know, Dad, they listened to me because of the crisis, not because they respected me, but sometimes we have to show them anyway." Every day I used to clean that glass boardroom table. Now, there's a little brass nameplate on it that says, Alana Rivera, Global Strategy Lead. But I still think about that morning. What if I hadn't spoken up? What if she hadn't walked in? How many talents are being overlooked, simply because they wear the wrong shoes? Alana's story isn't just hers, it's mine, it's yours. It's every father who believes in their daughter. Every janitor who knows the floor better than the CEO, knows the skyline, and every person who's ever been underestimated. They laughed at me until she changed the room. Chapter 2. The room fell silent. They laughed at me until she changed the room. When I left the boardroom that day, I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. Their laughter echoed behind me, arrogant, dismissive, cold. I remember the heavy glass door clicking shut behind me like a final judgment. But what they didn't know was that I wasn't walking away in defeat. I was walking toward something, toward someone. My daughter Aisha. She was sitting in the car outside, waiting with her sketchbook on her lap and a cold cup of coffee beside her. Her suit didn't fit quite right. We'd borrowed it from a cousin. Still, she looked radiant. Nervous, but radiant. She didn't ask how it went. She just looked at me, eyes searching. They think we're nothing, I said quietly. She closed her sketchbook and said, then let's show them everything. The next morning, she walked into that boardroom, not with a corporate pitch deck or rehearsed corporate jargon, but with conviction. And something else, understanding. Understanding of a culture, a language, and a need those men in tailored suits had failed to grasp. The deal on the table was with a firm from Senegal. None of the executives in that room spoke Wolof. The translator they'd hired quit 2 hours before the meeting. Panic ensued. That's when I first mentioned my daughter, who not only studied international relations, but grew up learning Wolof from her grandmother. They scoffed. Now she stood before them, speaking fluently, calmly translating both words and emotions. The Senegalese CEO, Mr. Diop, looked impressed. Finally, someone who didn't just talk, but listened. You understand our hesitations? He asked her in Wolof. Aisha nodded. I understand you want partnership, not exploitation. You want respect, not just profit. He smiled. A real one, not corporate. Suddenly, the mood shifted. The American execs began to realize something rare was happening. Authentic communication. The room, once filled with smug smiles and laughter, was now quiet at one point. One of the senior partners leaned over and whispered to another, she's not even on payroll. I heard that, and I didn't flinch, because neither were there empty titles when the deal closed. And then came the moment I'll never forget. Mr. Diop placed his signed pen down, stood up, and said, this woman, she represents the future. If this is the team we sign, $1 million deal, done. Not because of a Harvard grad, not because of a sales pitch, because a janitor's daughter dared to walk in where they assumed she never could. I watched those executives, those who once chuckled at my mop and badge, now offering Aisha their business cards. She didn't even look at them. She looked at me. Let's go home, Baba. The power wasn't in the deal. It was in the silence that followed, because silence speaks loudest after laughter. And in that silence, every smirk, every dismissal, every stereotype melted into the floor they once believed I was beneath. How often do we ignore brilliance simply because it wears the wrong shoes? How many rooms have voices we never hear because we never invite them in? Aisha would go on to lead cultural negotiations across 5 continents. Her name appeared on deals 10 times larger than that one. But for me, that day will always be her true beginning. That's when the world saw what I always knew. She was never just my daughter. She was the storm they'd never seen coming. The room had fallen quiet. The ink had dried, but in that silence, something began to stir inside me. Not pride, not revenge, something deeper. Redemption. We drove home that evening with the windows down. Aisha didn't say much, but her eyes said everything. I could tell she was still carrying the moment, not just the applause, not just the contract, the weight of it all, of breaking through. Did you ever think this would happen, Baba? She finally asked. Yes, I said, but I never thought they'd let it happen, and they almost didn't let me. Take you back 2 years before that boardroom moment. I was cleaning the offices late one night when I overheard something, an internal conversation about outsourcing a major project to a French African tech firm. It wasn't finalized, but they needed someone to bridge the communication gap, someone who could truly understand both sides. At that time, Aisha was still a student. She worked part-time at a library and spent her nights reading everything from West African economic policy to obscure dialects of Wolof and Pulaar. She wasn't just studying, she was preparing, even if she didn't know it yet. One night over dinner, I told her, you have something they can't buy in a conference room. You understand people, she smiled and said, But will they ever see it if I don't wear a badge like theirs? That question haunted me, so I started bringing her with me when I worked weekends, quietly, just so she could walk the halls. Feel the energy. Watch how those suits talked. She learned fast. She listened more. She saw everything I was never meant to see, and they never saw her coming. One afternoon, while she was in a strategy meeting, I was in the break room cleaning up. Two senior staff members walked in and didn't see me. "Did you see the new draft?" It's all in her tone. She thinks she runs the place. The other chuckled. "She'll burn out soon." They always do. Always. The weight of that word sat heavy, because when they said they, I knew who they meant. But Aisha didn't burn out. She initiated a cultural training program, started mentorship circles for first-gen college grads, designed a new hiring framework to include overlooked communities. It wasn't flashy, it was real. And real made people uncomfortable. But the silence they once used to ignore her was now the silence of watching her lead. And I kept cleaning that break room. Not because I had to, because I chose to. Because some revolutions start quietly, and sometimes being invisible is what makes you witness everything. The moment her pitch ended, silence fell. Not the usual kind, but the kind that grabs you by the throat, the kind that makes your pulse sound louder than the room. I was still in the corner. My mop still leaned against the wall, as if mocking the absurdity of it all. Then came the sound, one single clap, followed by another and another, until the entire boardroom erupted applause. But not just applause. Standing ovation. The CEO, the same man who once glanced at me like I was part of the wallpaper, was now shaking my daughter's hand, like she had just walked off a battlefield victorious. "I've never seen anything like this," he said. "You turned a dying deal into a living empire." They handed her a folder, sealed, embossed, her name. The contract, $1.20 million. It was hers. And she looked at me. Her eyes didn't say, "I told you so." They said, "We did it." But just when I thought the story was over, something happened that I never saw coming. 2 days later, a private car pulled up outside our modest apartment. Black SUV, tinted windows, polished tires. Out came a woman in a gray skirt suit. She introduced herself as Mariana Brooks, legal head of Global Holdings, Inc. "I'm here because of your daughter," she said. I froze. My thoughts spiraled. "Is something wrong?" She smiled gently. "Quite the opposite. She's nominated for an international youth leadership grant. They want to fly her out to Switzerland." Switzerland, we'd never even left our city. Double quotes. But, how? The day before the deal, when the translator backed out, I made a decision. I walked into the executive assistant's office and said, "You need help. I have someone." She barely looked up. "Not a good time, Thomas." I leaned forward. "Her name is Aisha. She's fluent in Wolof. She understands the cultural sensitivities, and she won't cost you anything. Just one meeting." Silence. Then a long sigh. "Fine. One meeting. If it blows up, it's on you." That's all we needed. Aisha didn't flinch once during that meeting. And now, just 24 hours later, she had changed the power dynamics of an entire floor. But with every shift in power comes a shift in focus. They weren't ignoring her anymore. They were watching closely. The following week, we got an email. Subject: possible contract position, cultural liaison, no salary mentioned, no benefits. Just a line at the end. Pending board approval, we may consider onboarding her on a trial basis. Trial basis, after she closed $1 million deal, they were still trying to define her worth on their terms. Should I take it? She asked me. I looked at the screen, then at her. Only if you walk in knowing your value was never defined by that title. She thought for a moment and said, "Then maybe I walk in and rewrite what that title means." That's my daughter, she accepted the offer, but on her terms. Her first meeting, she brought in 2 local community leaders from Senegal who had immigrated to the US and worked in global trade. The execs didn't know how to react, but Diop did. He flew in just to meet them. And when he did, he brought gifts not for the board, but for Aisha and me. A hand-woven scarf for her, a small wooden statue for me, a janitor holding a lantern. "You lit the way," he told me. That's when I realized something. It was never about getting into the room. It was about bringing the right light into it. How many of us live in rooms we don't belong to? What if brilliance isn't missing, just ignored? Aisha's role expanded within weeks. They couldn't keep her in a box because she never stepped into one. But with growth came resistance. There were whispers, comments behind her back. Someone even wrote an anonymous complaint claiming she was overstepping. The irony? The only thing she stepped over were the limits they tried to place on her. Her idea, she said, not just the pitch, the vision. Investors overseas saw the recording. They want her to advise startups that focus on social impact. My daughter was about to sit across from world leaders, and me, still a janitor. But suddenly, I wasn't just a janitor. I was her father, the man who told bedtime stories from cleaning manuals, who practiced English with her using expired manuals found in the company trash, who saved coins to buy her a second-hand laptop that broken. Laptop. It had just changed the world. But then, as the days passed, the real world crept back in. One morning, as I pushed my cart down the 12th floor hallway, I heard laughter again. Not warm laughter, the cold kind. She's just a PR stunt. Bet her daddy mopped the stage for her. They laughed at her. They laughed at me. My fist clenched around the mop handle. But this time, I didn't walk away. I stepped into the room, and for the first time, I spoke. My daughter doesn't need you to believe in her. She believed in herself when no one else did, including you. The silence wasn't awkward. It was a shame the final meeting was held in the same room, same long table, same glasses of untouched water. But something had changed. They brought in journalists this time, cameras, lights. The CEO opened the meeting. "Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge someone we've overlooked far too long." I looked around, confused. Then he pointed at me. "This company has janitors, but this man is more than that." He raised a visionary. Trained her mind when we trained spreadsheets. Fed her hope when we fed profits. He handed me a small box. Inside was a company pin. Gold with my name engraved. And then an offer letter. Not for cleaning, for mentorship. They wanted me to talk to the interns to tell them what real resilience looks like. So now, every Wednesday, I walk past my old mop. And into the mentorship wing. I speak to kids with dreams too big for their pockets. I tell them about floor wax, forgotten books, and broken laptops, about how one daughter, in one room, with one voice, can close $1 million deal and open a door for the world. But here's what still haunts me. Why did it take $1 million deal? For them to finally see us? What about the others? The janitors with stories that never got told. The daughters with ideas that never got heard. The fathers who never got the chance to speak in a room. Maybe one day we'll stop waiting for the deal. To believe in the dream,